Several decades ago, an extra-dimensional storm broke out on Earth. After this, many mythical creatures from other dimensions were discovered. These were gods, ghosts, werewolves, angels, demons, elves. All these creatures are divided into 4 classes: mortal, legendary, epic, and mythical. Their abilities and destructive power far exceed even the wildest expectations. People belong to the lower class, mortals. But by strengthening the body and spirit, you can increase your class. In addition to improving spiritual power, there is another way to significantly speed up evolution. You need to hunt creatures from other dimensions and take their crystals. However, the places where they live are very dangerous. Going there is a mortal risk. The action takes place in a math lesson, and the teacher calls Chuck to the blackboard. The whole class looked at Chuck, but he did not respond. But he didn't respond because he was sleeping, covering himself with a math textbook. The math teacher said that the previous principal thought very highly of him. The director said that there are supposedly 2 types of geniuses. The first type is Chuck. The second is everyone else. Suddenly, Chuck woke up with a start and stood up from his chair. He shouted that he was getting out of class, and the teacher, whose name was Alex, said that it seemed the director was mistaken about him. The main character's life changed completely when a mysterious phone fell into his hands. The guy completely gave up on studying and improving, and all this because of playing on the phone. To start playing it, you first need to turn it on with a drop of blood. After this drop has hit it, you should click on the application icon. Using one more drop of blood, you can create your own character. By increasing the character's skills, Chuck improves himself in reality. It's safe, fast, and convenient. In this game, you are allowed to kill mortal creatures, such as the mighty ant. There are many geniuses in the community who have developed spiritual powers by the age of 16, but it seems that Chuck is the only one who was able to improve his spirit through meditation and asceticism without any outside help. At first, all the teachers and students of the hero's school believed that he would certainly achieve success in the future. With a strength like his, it wouldn't be difficult for him to take first place in the upcoming battle skill test. However, a month ago the unexpected happened. In the school gym, there were battles between the strongest who tried to show what they were capable of. Chuck was the most outstanding of all when suddenly a girl challenged him. The guy thought they had seen each other before, but the girl told him to just attack her. The main character was not going to stand on ceremony with her and launched the attack first. However, this heroine was not the timid one. She hit him in the stomach, and he flew several meters away. She looked at him with a devastated look and remained silent. The people did not expect this from her, since she knocked him out in just a second. This girl was definitely strong, and her name was Ariana. After Ariana defeated Chuck with one blow, he completely gave up and now only sleeps and plays all day long. It seems to Alex that if he continues to play games like this, it will not lead to good things. At this time, Chuck was sitting calmly on the playground and playing on the phone. He killed monsters and collected crystals from them. Crystals from defeated enemies, absorbed by the player, affect him and improve his skills. And in the game, the user can see various characteristics, which is impossible in real life. If a guy were to improve through meditation through suffering, he would hardly be able to advance even in a few years. Unfortunately, the crystals that fall out in the game cannot be transferred to the real world. So Chuck could live happily ever after simply selling unnecessary low-level crystals. Suddenly, Chuck was sitting and playing calmly, but he was attacked by a powerful red mutant. His speed and strength are obviously much higher than those of ordinary ants. The main character could defeat him if he had more time. However, there are more and more monsters. Suddenly, a young girl comes to the badminton court. This girl had a very beautiful name. Her name was Jessica. Chuck hoped that she wasn't going to him, because she couldn't let her find out the secret of his phone. Otherwise, the guy would be in big trouble. Alas, Chuck was out of luck because she had been looking for him for half a day and wanted to offer him something interesting. Since the final exam to test combat skills was coming soon, Jessica really hoped that the hero would agree to join her team. The main character looked at her with a confused look and was surprised that she wanted to invite him. Next, he began to ask Jessica why she wanted to unite. Jessica replied that she was trying her best to get a high rating, so she needed a strong team, and he was just the right one for her. But Chuck is completely despairing of that loss and believes that he cannot become the same as before. Jessica began to support him because she considers him the only one from the school who is a worthy opponent. Afterwards, the guy wondered how Ariana was doing. But as it turned out, she had already transferred to another school. Also, she's already above the mortal class, and she disappeared as suddenly as she appeared. The girl seemed to have come only to fight Chuck. Jessica thought that Chuck and Ariana had known each other for a long time, so she wanted to settle scores with him. But the hero replied that it was impossible because he had never met her before. Perhaps Jessica simply thought too much and returned to the question of the team. Chuck wasn't at all opposed to clinging to them if she agreed. They agreed on this. In addition, Jessica found 2 more team members. Now the 4 of them will train every day during practical exercises, so that during the test they act harmoniously and understand each other. At this time, Chuck was playing on the phone and fighting monsters, but unfortunately, he lost. However, the hero was not upset and decided to check the characteristics of the house. Suddenly, Chuck took the crystal, and it was not the same as before. This one was somehow violent. This crystal contained the legendary skill of spiritual power. Chuck was wondering what skill he could get from an ant, and as it turned out, he got the fist of a level 7 Titan. So the next day, Jessica's team gathered in the city center. The rest of the team, when they found out that Chuck would be with them, they didn't believe it at first. However, the guys know that the hero is strong, but he has not trained for a month, and it will be very difficult for him to return to his previous level. One of the team members said that their goal is to take first place during the combat skills test, and he is afraid that Chuck is not the best choice. So he suggests inviting his old friend Trevor. This test greatly influences your future life. It has a direct bearing on admission to a prestigious school and employment. In addition, your safety depends on the strength of your partners, so there is nothing to blame them for. Jessica agreed that Trevor is indeed an outstanding fighter, but she still thinks Chuck is the better option. After her words, Cedric suggested conducting a small test, the result of which would determine whether Chuck was right for them or not. Everything was very simple, as Cedric said. Since he is the weakest of them, the hero will have to fight him, and if he manages to win, Chuck will join the team. The young guy was not against this fight, but he believed that it would be bad if someone got hurt in this fight. The kids at school have measuring powers, but dry numbers are boring, so they will fight. The one who retreats loses. Cedric uses the thunderclap cultivation method. He specializes in bursts of power, and the thunder fist skill is a good addition. Yes, Chuck practiced meditation through suffering, but he never bought vitality crystals to speed up his cultivation. The hero suggested that his opponent better use the school's strength meter, to which Cedric said that he was supposedly afraid. Chuck felt awkward and laughed, saying that he was really afraid, although in reality he was just afraid of killing him with one blow. Cedric had to agree with him, and they went to the school's strength meter. Cedric asked him who would strike first, but the hero didn't care about that. Then Cedric decided to strike first and grinned before the blow. He hit the force meter with a fairly strong blow, and the score showed a force of 7 points. There's a slight difference between this meter and the stat in the game, but Chuck didn't think the differences would be too significant when he found this mysterious phone. It had a power of 7. Cedric was pleased with his results and invited the guy to the next blow. At this time, Alex was walking around the school. He became interested in who was using the room outside of school hours and decided to look in there. Alex decided not to rush in yet and look at the guys, and then he saw Chuck make his shot. When he hit the meter, the display showed 10 units. The team did not expect such strength from him and simply looked at him in surprise. Alex did not believe that he was able to knock out 10 units and did not understand how this could be. So Alex began to believe that he was constantly sleeping in class because he was training so hard. Chuck hit the meter with an inch punch, a punch that lands 3 or 4 centimeters away and leaves the fist still in place. Cedric was very angry that he lost to the guy. He also told him that he had been accepted into the team. Cedric pushed Chuck away so he could hit him again. He used his spiritual power skill, Thunder Fist. This time his hit was significantly greater than the last. 11 units fell on the scoreboard. Chuck told him sarcastically that the hit wasn't bad. After that, Cedric told him that if he couldn't do it anymore, then let him say that there was nothing shameful in this. To which Chuck wondered if the school would make him pay for it if the strength meter suddenly broke, and Cedric added that if he really broke it, he would pay for it himself. Now the main character was completely calm and decided to hit him with all his might. Cedric thinks that Chuck is pretending to be something, since this item is designed to measure strength, even though it is a rather old model with a limit of only 20 units. But there are only a few high school students who can hit the maximum, and even fewer who can break it. Chuck begins to use his spiritual power skill. To his surprise, Chuck actually broke this strength meter. For everyone present, it was truly extraordinary. The limit of this meter is 20 units, however. This does not mean that it can only withstand this value. It will require a spiritual power skill of at least 8 or 9 levels to break the device. It was at this moment that the teacher remembered the director's words that there are 2 types of geniuses. Cedric admired the hero's blow. Now he is obliged to pay for it, and also now they are on the same team and Chuck can rely on him. Jessica found this guy even more interesting than she thought. It's already evening and Chuck is returning home. As he walked, he realized that Jessica had reminded him that usually people who have received the legendary class consider it beneath their dignity to even stand next to mortals. Ariana, on her own initiative, challenged Chuck, a mortal student. The main character thought about the fact that he had never traveled outside the guide district. Therefore, how could he annoy her? Suddenly, the phone rang from the guy's pocket. It was the hero's father, and he wanted to invite his son to his wedding. Chuck became curious about who he would marry, and his father told him to wait to send a photo of the girl. The father sent the guy a photo of his wife. Her name was Enfisa. The ceremony will be held in Luoyang in about a week, but Chuck has a skills test in just a week, so he still couldn't go even if he wanted to. The hero also remembered about the metal box for cookies in their dressing room, but the father did not understand which box he was talking about. It was a square iron box, each side about 30 centimeters, and also had a cartoon bear drawn on it. My father remembered it and said that this was a box of cookies that he often ate as a child, but cookies of this brand had long been unavailable for purchase, so most likely that box had been lying around for a very long time. Chuck found a phone in this box and wondered where it came from. White body, black screen, no buttons, approximately 17-20 centimeters. It was my grandfather's phone. The hero's grandfather was a carpenter during the restoration of the old city of Guide. He had to repair many ancient wooden buildings, so he worked there for more than a year. One day, a dry well was dug up at a construction site. It was deep at night. Only a few people were left working overtime. A faint light was coming from the well. The workers thought they had found some kind of treasure, but it turned out to be an old wooden box. There were many cracks on the lid. Light was shining through them. There was a phone inside the box. Initially, it was turned on, but it immediately turned off, and the workers did not find the charging connector. The workers were very disappointed and thought that someone just wanted to play a joke by planting a broken phone. Everyone quickly lost interest, and the grandfather threw it into his tool bag. My father wanted to exchange it for a couple of packs of cigarettes at the workshop, but they said that it was worth nothing at all, so he threw the phone in a box. It's good that my father couldn't exchange it for cigarettes then. Otherwise, they would be biting their elbows now. The hero's dad had a lot of things to do. He also reminded about the wedding and hung up. The combat skills test will take place there, so Chuck wants to try to look for this well if possible. Unfortunately, the hero forgot to ask his father if he could have offended anyone in the past. For several days, the guy has been doing the same things. Also, ordinary days passed at school, the children went about their business. Suddenly, an unknown person walked by with a businesslike gait and pushed the student. He immediately seemed like an unkind character. This strange guy calmly apologized and started one rumor. After this rumor, Cedric approached Chuck and apologized to him, saying that he was invited by a friend to join his team, and he would not be able to team up with him. The hero hopes that Jessica has a backup plan, because at such a time it will be difficult to find a new team member. Chuck found the second team member. His name, by the way, was Leon, and he unfortunately also could not take part in the test with him since he had reasons for this. Chuck has already found Jessica. She started to apologize to him, but he told her that he knew everything and she didn't have to worry. He also added that he should apologize because someone wants to deal with him. But they also got involved. The hero advised Jessica to find someone else before it was too late. The girl didn't know who he crossed the road with, but this man has enormous influence, so she told him to be careful. This test is very important for Chuck, and he does not understand where he can find a companion he can trust, when suddenly teacher Alex calls him to his office. There he told him that the commander occupied a very high position. His real name was Isaac, and Chuck didn't even know about him. It was all very strange if he didn't even know him, because when he arrived to conduct an inspection in Guide County, he criticized the hero, a simple high school student. The guy at that time did not even realize who this Isaac was. The Commonwealth of the Earth is divided into North, South, West, and East. Although Isaac is still very young, he comes from a noble family. At 20, he already holds a high position and is an important military official in the Eastern Zone. The teacher is not sure that Isaac is against the hero, but one phrase about how bad he is, and those who want to curry favor with him are ready to do anything. Chuck asked Alex if he had any connection with Ariana. This is quite possible, but this can be dealt with later. Now the hero needs to find a team and register for verification. The deadline for submitting applications ends the day after tomorrow, so he can't put it off for a second. Otherwise, Chuck will definitely not make it in time. Alex recommended a student named Larry to him, but in return, Chuck must help him get the highest score using all his strength, and he must be the best on their team. Even if Chuck can't take first place on his team, it's still better than not being able to participate in the test at all. The main character does not know how to contact Larry and asks the teacher to help him with this. After leaving school, he called his father and asked if he knew anything about Isaac. Isaac is Anfisa's son, and if his father marries her, he will become the main character's older half-brother. The father also remembered that he would also have a younger half-sister, Ariana. For Chuck, it was a complete shock. Surprisingly, Anfisa's father and children have a good relationship. They respect him very much. But perhaps deep down they are against their father's marriage to Anfisa, which is why Isaac and Ariana treat him so poorly. Ariana can easily defeat Chuck, and because of one phrase from Isaac, he almost lost the opportunity to take the entrance exam. In the last few days, all he had done was destroy the mighty mutant ants. But apart from the crystal with the spiritual power skill that fell from the first ant, the guy received nothing else, although he had already killed more than 10, and there were no more of them left. After some time, he finally got something. And Chuck got an egg with a pet. Mortals rarely have a pet companion. Mostly those who have already reached the legendary class have one. It was time to open the egg when suddenly something flew out of it and moved into the main character. Literally, just the same thing moved into you, dear YouTube viewer. It controls you and forces you to subscribe, leave a comment, and this is important to me. Oh, I mean for this thing, thank you for watching, have a nice day. Voices of an oath of service until death sounded in the guy's head, and he didn't feel very good about it. When he woke up, he had a severe headache, and on his hand, he noticed a certain imprint of an ant. The companion pet successfully hatched, and the hero decided to call him to look at him. But he had problems because he didn't know how to summon it. Chuck decided to think about the skills of the summoner and the mutant ant, and something like a glove began to appear on his hand. It looks like this glove is the pet's form. They say it improves the characteristics of the user himself. The mutant ant most likely increases strength. Chuck's house is not suitable for testing his strength, so he just thought to take a good look at it. It looked much scarier than in the game. When Chuck saw it, he immediately knew this was his chance to ride it. The next day, Chuck and teacher Alex went to Larry's. Alex said that Larry likes to show off everything, but still, he is not a bad person. They entered the building and the young concierge showed them to Larry. Entering his room, he was sitting on the sofa with two pretty girls. Larry, seeing the teacher, immediately offered them a glass of sparkling wine, but Alex refused since he still had classes that day. Alex introduced Chuck to him and said about him that he was very capable, so he would be very useful in the exam. Larry will allow the hero to join his team because he trusts the teacher. The teacher also advised him to discuss with Chuck all issues related to testing combat skills. Alex will help them with registration, and Chuck should stay with Larry for now in order to get to know him well over the past few days. This will allow them to better understand each other during the test. As soon as the teacher left, Larry told him that he was the #1 of Gaudi School, to which Chuck said that these were rumors and should not be believed. Larry responded to this by saying that in such a small town of Guide, there really is no place for a genius to come from, and if he were a genius, Ariana would not have won with one blow. In addition, Larry said that there was no need for any coordination training, just that he should listen and not interfere when the time came, and everything would be fine. Larry offered Chuck a drink, and if he could drink the whole bottle, he could choose any girl from those present. However, Chuck refused because he doesn't drink. At this time, the guy thought that for the sake of such a worthless person, the teacher had to humiliate himself and beg. It was definitely not worth it. Suddenly, Larry and his girlfriend were up to something. He told her to start flirting with Chuck. His girlfriend kept calling him to do more pleasant things, but the guy had no time for that, because the ant with silver wings in the game was very fast, and it was very difficult to defeat him. The girlfriend was infuriated that Chuck was not paying any attention to her and was grabbing his head. Still, the hero kept looking at the phone screen, as he was on the verge of death. Chuck also didn't like the fact that Larry's girlfriend was hitting on him, and he just pushed her aside. Larry, seeing such a picture, even threw the champagne out of his mouth. Then he and his second girlfriend started laughing about it. Unfortunately, the guy still lost to the ant with silver wings perhaps. If he had not been distracted, he would have won. This incident impressed Larry, and Chuck seemed funny to him. Night fell and everyone had long since gone to bed. But something disturbed Larry that night, and he woke up. And Chuck played all night and achieved nothing. Although flying ants are very strong, they have not yet reached the legendary class, so it is quite possible to kill them. But first, the hero must at least get the opportunity to strike. The rank 9 Titan's fist can deal a lot of damage to the Silver Wings flying ant, but it takes too long. Since the game character is Chuck, upgrading his crushing fist with an inch punch in reality, the game character will also be able to synchronize with this improvement, but this is only in the guy's theory. Here the hero trains his shadowboxing strike throughout the night. At this time, Larry was spying on him and saw how he was training, and he also noticed that his applied force and amplitude were too large. It seemed to Larry that the guy was hiding some kind of talent, but he simply ignored it and went on to sleep. The day of the exam came and the boys went to school. It was clear from Chuck how he diligently solved the exam tasks. But Larry, without thinking about the question, chose a random answer. The next day, Chuck went to the old town of Guide. After the extra-dimensional storm that broke out years ago, a rift appeared here, and everything around turned into an interdimensional zone. Due to the influence of other dimensions, local animals and plants also underwent various changes. The next stage of the entrance exams, testing combat skills, is about to begin. Larry and the others hadn't arrived yet, so Chuck decided to wait for them and look around. Suddenly someone started calling the guy, and at first he thought it was his father. However, the call came from a mysterious phone that controls the Bloodman. It does not have a ringer function and has never vibrated before. And suddenly Chuck saw a camera app on his phone. Initially, the shutter on the camera would not press, and it seemed like the camera function on this phone was not working. But as soon as the hero pointed his mobile phone at the old wall, on which someone's palm was sealed, he immediately began to squeak. Now Chuck's phone contained not only the ant cave, but also the ancient city of Guide. Since the hero has nothing to do anyway, he decided to try to play there. By dropping a drop of blood on the phone screen, the guy really got into this game. Having walked some distance in the inner part of the ancient city, some creature was coming to meet him. It was a creature from another dimension, a skeletal soldier. Unfortunately, this soldier was not a friend to the guy and attacked him. Although Chuck is new to this dimension, the speed and strength of the skeleton are not very great. Having killed the skeleton, a crystal immediately fell out of it, which was surprising for the guy. Activating the crystal, there was no such terrible pain as the time he received a crushing fist. From this crystal, he gained a skill called Skeletal Touch. This is basically a low-level skill, but however, very little energy is consumed. To test its strength, you need to go deeper. To do this, Chuck summoned his powerful mutant ant. With the help of his pet, the hero destroyed dozens of skeletons. Chuck has already gone through so much, but he couldn't find exactly anything except that crystal. Suddenly, in the distance, the guy noticed a horde of skeletons. Among this crowd, one skeleton stood out as he was sitting astride a horse. Not even a second had passed before this skeleton approached the hero. As soon as he approached Chuck, he immediately hit him with his favorite. Because of his mother's words, Chuck saw Ariana smile for the first time. However, the mother said that Chuck was their guest, so it was for him. The hero felt uneasy from what he heard. It was only after this that Ariana literally got angry with the boy, and was ready to kill him because of her aggression. Anfisa whispered to Chuck not to pay attention to her, since the mother wanted to punish her daughter a little for offending him earlier. As soon as he tried the shrimp, he realized that he had never eaten anything like this before. But it seemed strange to him whether Anfisa really was Ariana's mother. Evening had already come, and the new mother invited the main character to stay with them. Chuck said that it's not worth it. When school starts, it will be more convenient to live closer to the university, and he and his friend have very good housing. In fact, the guy was afraid to stay because Ariana would definitely finish him off. But Anfisa did not let him go empty-handed and gave him the card. At first, Chuck didn't understand what it was, since he had never seen anything like it before. This is a pass card to his personal room in the Scion dorm. Frank once said that the main character loves to live alone, so the stepmother decided to prepare such a gift for the guy. This was a really useful gift for Chuck. If he lived alone, no one would bother him to play games. But it became unclear to the hero how his father knew what he needed. Chuck accepted the gift and thanked her, calling her auntie. Anfisa didn't like the fact that the guy called her auntie, so she asked to call her just mistress. The main character felt embarrassed by this. Women are really very worried about their age. Chuck returned home, but it looks like Larry has gone somewhere again. For the hero, this day seems to have been the best, since he ate deliciously, is full of energy, and can now play as much as he wants. In the game, he again went underground to the ant cave, in which he killed an ant, after which he again got an egg. But the last time the boy used the egg, the characteristics were much better. Suddenly, Chuck was attacked by an ant with wings. Because of this, the hero yelled at him, saying that it was ugly to attack like a rat. Now the guy needs to patiently dodge, otherwise he will be killed immediately. As soon as the ant got close, Chuck had a chance to strike it. However, the ant was faster, so he dodged his blow and hit back. Chuck got punched in the face and realized he had to find a way to kill him with one blow. At one point, the ant simply disappeared into thin air. This isn't the first time an ant has hidden, so Chuck was prepared by using armor. Also now the hero could only predict where he would end up. Fortunately, the boy predicted the moment of the attack and aimed his blow at the monster. Chuck hit it with a strong blow, but the ant was still able to move. The main character got tired of this, and he decided to deliver the final finishing blow. This time he succeeded and was finally able to exhale. Chuck got the egg from this monster the first time. The guy was happy, but he was faced with a choice: either breed the pet or use the egg to merge with the bone ant. But the compatibility of the fusion with the bone ant was 20%. Chuck found this strange because they were both ants, and their compatibility was lower than with the skeleton general. Since the compatibility was too low, the hero decided to try to breed a legendary level pet from him. Even if nothing worked, it should not affect reality. Chuck was faced with a difficult choice, and it even made him start to sweat. Still, he gathered his thoughts and was ready to take the risk. Suddenly, the spiritual strength of the protagonist began to be sucked out. Due to severe pain, the guy began to scream loudly, because it was as if his back was being torn apart by sharp fangs. From what was happening, Chuck began to cough along with blood. He saw that he had lost a lot of blood, and his eyes began to darken. Nevertheless, this process influenced reality, and the main character lost consciousness, falling on the floor, on which there was a pool of blood. A couple of minutes later, the guy woke up. Chuck was lucky that this happened in the game. If he had done this in real life, he would already be dead. The hero became interested in what happens if the hatching is unsuccessful. It seemed to him that in the worst case, the egg simply disappears, and decided to check it in the game. But in an unexpected turn of events, someone hatched from the egg. It was wonderful. Thanks to the ant with silver wings, the guy would finally be able to fly, so he would definitely deal with the lotus. He began to summon his pet, and a small ball appeared in front of him. And from this ball, a small ant with silver wings appeared. After this, Chuck was speechless and in complete shock. He started screaming loudly throughout the house because he didn't understand what the hell this was. The boy calmed down a little and began to look at the characteristics of the pet, which was in the initial stage. The hero felt that he was too weak for a creature of the legendary level, although he was quite good when he tried to kill it. Chuck decided to take a closer look at it, and the ant suddenly became cute for him. Suddenly a sign appeared near the ant, in which it was written to feed it quickly, since it was very hungry. The guy started to feel a little anxious because he didn't know what to feed him. However, a board appeared in front of him, on which he could choose what to feed the ant. He could eat a bone ant or a powerful mutant ant. This is the reason Chuck got angry at the pet, because normal pets can eat monsters. But as soon as the hero looked at his companion, he could not help but feed him. Therefore, the guy still chose to feed him an egg, which he really did not want. As it turned out, this only solves the problem of hunger growing. It is not so easy. The pet can't fully fight yet, so Chuck will have to see what he can do in the form of wings. When he saw these tiny wings, he almost fainted. Since the ant cave is spacious, the main character decided to try out the wings there. Having started the flight, the guy immediately began to fly at great speed. Chuck didn't expect such speed, but it definitely made him happy. The ant's wings also had good maneuverability, meaning the wings weren't that bad, but unfortunately the hero was unable to fly higher. This means that the agility of the king of shaving flight manifests itself only at low altitude. Since Chuck can now fly, there is no longer any point in killing ants on the ground. Therefore, our character decided to continue exploring the cave. While the guy was flying, he began to notice that the cave was slowly narrowing. Chuck also began to notice something strange and decided to stop. He looked at the ground and saw how the number of ants increased significantly. But the hero did not despair, because now he can fly. Although there are many ants, they will not catch him. However, the ants were up to something and began to gather in a huge heap. The ants managed to surround Chuck and trap him. Only our hero did not give up and used his ashen palm. After this blow, the boy and the ants flew to various distances from each other. When the ants flew away, Chuck noticed an anthill, because of which there were more ants near him than usual. Ants with wings began to fly out from this anthill, and then they began to attack the main character in a crowd. The guy was unable to deal with such a huge horde, and realized that he could not do anything, so he went to certain death. After visiting this cave, Chuck realized that there was actually a lot more interesting in it. But the boy's abilities do not yet allow him to get close to the anthill. While Chuck was playing, he managed to get hungry. Therefore, the hero decided to look into the refrigerator, which of course contained nothing except champagne. After that, Chuck realized that he would have to take a walk. Despite his laziness, the guy decided to go alone down the street to the store. However, at this time, people from the Commonwealth were watching him. Since there were a lot of people on the street, the captain's assistant decided to take on all the work herself. The captain gave the command not to hide their identities, so the assistant stuck to her image. She looked amazing, so she believed that this boy would not be able to resist her. The assistant had already heard the hero's steps and was preparing to act. She fell in front of Chuck, shedding a fake tear and screaming how much she was hurt. The girl looked at him with sparkling eyes and asked for his help. But Chuck didn't even look at her and moved on because he was very hungry. Because of this, the girl became angry with him, since he dared to ignore her charm. The assistant did not stop there, and decided to use her trump card. Chuck was walking at that moment and thinking about something else, that now he could fly, and could also get to the lotus pond much easier. A girl from the community grabbed the hero's hand and called him a cute boy. She asked him where he was going so quickly, but the guy didn't understand what was happening and asked her who she was. The assistant told him that she was allegedly lost and had only recently fallen, after which she asked him for help. Chuck didn't react to this and said he would just call the police for her. The girl turned off the hero's phone because she wanted him to walk her home. The main character responded to her by saying that he needed to have dinner, which made the assistant completely shocked. She was disappointed that food was more attractive to him than a girl. She also added that if Chuck doesn't want it in a good way, then it will be in a bad way. Therefore, the girl planned to beat the hero until he lost consciousness and forcefully take him to the base. But unfortunately for the captain's assistant, Chuck dodged her blow. At first, the guy didn't notice this girl's face. When he looked at her face, he immediately remembered her when she and the community were looking for Drax. It was in vain that the girl underestimated Chuck. Because of this, she decided to get down to business seriously. However, the main character did something that no one would expect. He simply called the police, saying that he was attacked. If this continues, the assistant will definitely be discovered, and a lot of problems will arise if Anfisa's family suspects something. It was for this reason that the girl let go of Chuck and left. The main character looked at her leaving and didn't understand why she just left. At first it seemed strange to him that the Commonwealth appeared because he didn't even do anything. But then it dawned on him. Suddenly, they mistook him for Drax's ally. Immediately after the incident, Chuck called brother Larry. Larry was glad that his friend called because he had never called him before. The main character told his brother to find a quiet place because he needed to tell him something important. Larry found a quiet place, and the boy told him about the meeting with Drax. From what he heard, the brother began to envy his friend, because he also wants to meet such a legendary character. It's good that he didn't tell him about the part of the Immortality Sutra that interested this demon most. Otherwise, Larry would have gone crazy with delight. From Chuck's story, his brother guessed that these were hyenas. This is a special organization created to solve problems that the Commonwealth cannot deal with through legal means. They act with particular harshness, without thinking about methods and consequences. They have a bad reputation, which is why they are called hyenas. Just by their name, it is clear that they will bring a lot of problems. Chuck also asked his brother if he knew any way to get the guy into the university as quickly as possible. Although the special inspection has almost complete freedom of action, they cannot work too openly or ignore Xi'an University. Since Luoyang is the sphere of influence of Anfisa's family, Larry suggested that he just stay close to them. Then the hyenas would not dare to do anything to him. But still, His brother can help him with quick enrollment since he is also applying for early enrollment. He will also try to talk to his old man. Maybe there is another way to deal with the main character's problem. Chuck hung up and didn't understand why something was constantly happening to him. If only he were stronger. At this time, the girl from the Commonwealth, whose name is Megan, returned to the Commonwealth Special Inspection Department. The captain was very angry at her actions, as he warned her to do everything secretly and unnoticed. And just recently his boss called him, and he didn't know how to explain this to them. Megan told him it was the subordinates' fault for misjudging the preferences and strength of their target. The girl asked the captain for another chance, and she was sure to cope. He thought about it, and told her that now Chuck would be even harder to get to, so he gave her a folder to look through. The captain asked his mentor to find secret information about Anfisa and her family. All of this was in a folder that he gave to Megan. The girl carefully read this folder. There she saw that the place was originally intended for Ariana, but the family allowed an outsider, Chuck, to take it over. The captain agreed with Megan that it was inexplicable, but there was no mistake. The family exercised their right to make changes once and gave the spot to Chuck. It seemed strange to the man that both Drax and Anfisa's family all converged on him. Chuck was really interesting to the community. At this time, the main character sneezed, thinking that someone was remembering him. Chuck also finally made it to Sion University. After university, our character headed to the house in which there was a room. This is the same gift from Mrs. Anfisa. Entering it, the guy saw how spacious it was. Anfisa had arranged everything in an unusual way. Chuck's new life is slowly making itself known. However, the boy was in such a hurry to come to this house that he took too few things. So he had the task of buying something. There must definitely be a store on campus to find it. You need a navigator. While Chuck was glued to his phone, a certain girl came down the stairs. This girl turned out to be Ariana. She also lives in this house, but one floor higher. She did not expect to see him and walked on with puffy cheeks. Chuck again didn't understand why she was starting to get so angry. Then the boy sighed and resigned himself, pretending that nothing had happened. The main character was looking for a store, and judging by the map it should be somewhere nearby. But something went wrong, and it seems Chuck went in the wrong direction. It was empty all around, so it wouldn't be possible to even ask anyone where he ended up. Suddenly the guy heard a cat start meowing from somewhere. Luckily there was someone else with a cat. The voice coming from the other side seemed very familiar to Chuck. He came around the corner and asked to show him the way. And there sat Diablo and lisped with the cat. Chuck didn't expect to see such an evil guy playing with a cat. Diablo slowly let go of the cat and he felt a little uneasy. So he warned Chuck that if he told anyone, he was dead. The boy told him that he just wanted to ask where the store was. Diablo listened to him and let him go, telling him about the area. This is the old part of the campus. He gave directions to the hero and then he will find guards who will lead him to the store. He also warned him not to interfere with them. After the spatial storm, people began to gain the opportunity to enter into contracts and subjugate beings with enormous power. And most people now do not consider it necessary to pay attention to simple earthly animals. Who would have thought that tigers also enjoy the scent of roses? This means that even a formidable person can show tenderness. Arriving home, Chuck started playing on the phone again and lost the game again. He was sure that the path from the bridge to the small Buddha temple was guarded by a mysterious force that would kill anyone who dared to pass. It's just very strange. The guy just spent several lives trying to get to the temple, but every time he is killed without any warning. Chuck even tried to fly and not touch the ground, but as soon as you get into this zone, you die immediately. The hero began to be tormented by the thought that this was a dead end. But this is a game. No matter how difficult it is, there must still be a way. The skeleton horseman and the flying ant are strong and can find a blind spot to attack. But they were still quickly killed. The main character thought about it and realized that this was not quite like a boss battle. After some time, he realized that he needed a key to enter. Therefore, the boy will have to find it for further passage. There was just one catch. There was nothing to explore in the city of Buddha except the pond. At that moment, Chuck remembered his learned skill of calming his heart. This is a Buddha city skill, but it does not increase defense, attack, or speed. It only consumes spiritual power. Based on this, it means it has a different use. Thanks to this skill, he went further than usual. Chuck was very happy because now he will be able to explore the temple. But as soon as the guy walked further, the phone screen turned off. He also noticed how the energy consumption of spiritual power suddenly became too high. However, the main character did not stop and continued to play. In this case, he decided to run to the temple in one jerk. Unfortunately, the guy was still unable to move on. Chuck still didn't have enough speed, so he decided to use a flying ant. Maybe it would work. Yes, now it is much faster, but the consumption has also become higher. As practice shows, the 7th level is not enough to pass, so you need to pass it by clearing the Lotus Pond again. But only at that moment Brother Larry called the hero. His brother told him to quickly come to the pond, as the real show was starting there. Chuck asked him why he should come there, but Larry replied that he would see everything for himself when he came. At the pond, Kyle, a third-year student, and Ariana, who had reached the legendary level even before enrolling, met. It is not surprising that Kyle wants to kill this lotus of the heart of Buddha and give her a gift in honor of enrollment. Ariana told him not to waste time on such nonsense since she did not need any welcome gift. The girl also added that supposedly Kyle would not be able to kill this lotus with a bloody pattern. After her words, Kyle became angry, and the rest of the people were surprised. The brother was surprised that everyone calls this creature the lotus of the heart of Buddha, with a bloody pattern. It seems that Anfisa's family has long studied in detail everything about this monster. Then, out of nowhere, Ricky appeared and said that this guy Kyle wants to suck up to Ariana's family. He put on such a performance right after school started. Although Kyle's family has a certain influence, it is significantly inferior to Anfisa's family, and their business is highly dependent on the position of Ariana's family, so Ariana will definitely never like it. After that, Ricky started talking dirty about Ariana and Larry. But his brother gagged him so that he would stop, since this was, after all, his friend's younger sister. Larry can't offend him like that. When Chuck arrived, he was upset that his brother called him because of his sister. Larry told him that Ariana had a crush. Shouldn't her big brother do something? In response to this, the guy asked him why he was so worried. Kyle didn't expect Ariana to think so badly of him, so he promised to kill this monster and she would have to accept his gift. However, the girl told him that this was a meaningless promise and advised him not to disgrace himself. The third-year student did not lose heart. He only told her one thing so that she could just watch. Kyle used his 2 legendary silver hawks, and this greatly surprised Ricky. He stood still and only gave the command to his faithful birds to finish off the lotus as quickly as possible. The bloodwater couldn't harm their plumage. As expected from the legendary level, perhaps he could still defeat them. At this moment, Chuck said it was not so simple. In fact, the battle is not over yet. In a moment, the lotus of the heart opened. After this, Kyle truly felt fear for his birds. As a rule, spatial creatures. Plants are very weak, but here is proof of the opposite. Kyle decided to use his secret technique to see if he could handle it. His secret technique was to turn silver hawks into burning birds. Unfortunately, Kyle is out of luck, as the monster also has the defensive skills of spiritual power. It was then that the third-year student realized that this monster was not so simple. But it seems that this blood shield only works in 4 directions. He just needs to distract him. One of his hawks will create a distraction while the other strikes from above. At that second, Chuck shouted that it was a trap. Kyle heard the hero, and while he turned away, the monster swallowed one of the third-year hawks. The people were shocked by what they saw. If Kyle continues, he will lose even more. The senior student realized that he could not cope with the lotus of the Buddha's heart, and called off the second hawk. After that, he approached the main character. Chuck didn't think he could handle the monster from the start, so Kyle asked him how he knew that. For the boy, this minute was very inconvenient, since he could not say that he had passed it in a game on the phone. However, he was lucky because Ricky stood up for him, saying that it was obvious. He also bragged about how brother Chuck took second place in the fighting skills test and guide. When Kyle heard that Chuck took second place, he sarcastically praised him and smiled. Ricky didn't like his smile. It seems he doesn't care much that his silver chicken died. If he were in his place, he would have simply sunk into the ground. Then Kyle asked him what great plan the second one in guide had to kill the lotus. After that, Ricky said that if brother Chuck gets down to business, he can handle it easily. He won't disgrace himself like Kyle. The protagonist's face showed how uncomfortable he felt with his friend's words. Ariana also heard this conversation, and as soon as Ricky talked about Chuck, she immediately ran in their direction. Ariana walked up to her half-brother and looked into his eyes with a surprised face. She asked the guy if he was sure that he could cope with this monster. This question made Chuck feel even worse than before. Although the main character tried many times, he was never able to defeat the lotus in the game, and the real blood-patterned lotus used a skill that was not in the game. Chuck didn't know what to answer his sister and clenched his fist tightly. Kyle noticed this and said that the hero was simply scared. Therefore, they could only chat. At that moment, behind Chuck, you could hear someone wanting to try it with the boy. This man was brother Larry. He saw how his friend immediately needed support. Kyle didn't expect the famous dude to want to help him. Even the Silverhawk lost, so the third year thought that these weaklings were just delusional. However, he did not leave and stayed to watch the show. After that, Larry yelled at Ricky, since he never keeps his mouth shut. But the guys no longer have any point in blaming him. They have already accepted the challenge. Now they need to discuss strategy. Chuck couldn't defeat the lotus in the game, but now there are 3 of them. So our hero hoped it would be easier this way than one. And Larry also has 2 legendary-level companion pets, so maybe things aren't so hopeless. Now the guys had the main question of how to enter the pond. You can't rely only on a bone ant, because it won't survive 3. In fact, as soon as they learned about the Buddha's heart lotus with a bloody pattern, Larry began to look for an egg with a pet that can fly. but this is very rare, and he could only find a mollusk that barely flies. The flying shell does not inspire confidence when suddenly Ricky asked for it to be given to him. He used his pet, a turtle with a dragon scale shell. Until this moment, Larry thought that Chuck got an interesting specimen, but Ricky also hit a mortal level one. So the guys plunged into the pond on a turtle and moved towards the lotus. Ricky told them to start the fight, and at this time he would direct the turtle to help them. Larry and Chuck were ready to begin the attack. It was clear from their gaze that they seriously intended to kill. The main character first used his bone ant. Larry wasn't far behind and summoned his pet companion. The people were shocked that a companion of a legendary level appeared in the battle again, and that there really was that frivolous and dissolute third son from the family in which Larry was. When Kyle saw Brother Larry's pet, he began to be a little jealous of his wealth. If you look at Ariana, this time her face was not as angry as it always was. Chuck noticed his brother's clam swaying. He realized that it was difficult for him to control his pet. So the guy instructed Ricky to make sure that he did not fall into the water. The guys got ready and began to attack the heart lotus with a bloody pattern. At first, the lotus began to shoot something incomprehensible at the guys. Therefore, Chuck was the first to defend himself with his bone ant. The protagonist's ant was able to repel all the monster's attacks. Larry did not sit idle and wait for the right moment to strike the lotus of the heart. The brother managed to strike, but only now he got angry and began to use his defense skill. Chuck noticed this and thought he was using it to force the guys to attack from above. Larry was about to hit him in the forehead at that moment. Brother Larry gathered his strength and began his attack against the enemy. But after this blow, he lost consciousness and began to fall. However, he managed to break through the lotus, inside of which there was a toad. After breaking through the lotus, the toad immediately began to attack Larry. Fortunately, Chuck managed to use the Titan's fist, thereby saving his friend. The hero told Rick to criticize Chuck, and now he has problems. The warden understood everything, but such non-entities as the captain do not need to know this, after which he apologized for the fact that they had gone too far. Isaac saw that the captain was repentant, so he allowed him to take this woman with him. But he could do this after they deprived her of cultivation. After this, Isaac asked him if he knew why he was called the Heavenly Lefty. The captain did not know why he was called that, to which the warden replied, "He is the left hand of God." At this time, Chuck waited for half an hour in the small Buddha hall, because he was afraid that Megan would bring people to catch him. The hero understood that he would not hold out for so long, so he thought of going upstairs in order to reconnoiter the situation. Although the bone ant was seriously injured, they managed to restore it in time. Now the boy just has to figure out how to solve this problem, and he decides to talk to Larry. Going upstairs, opposite the main character stood a man who told him that he was waiting for him. The warden told the boy that Mrs. Anfisa had sent him for him. Chuck, of course, was a little shocked and a little embarrassed. Now the guy and Isaac are sitting in the car, after which his stepbrother told him that he most likely hates him. The boy told him that everything was fine, although he did not understand what he needed from him. Isaac didn't care what Chuck thought about him. He told him to remember only one thing, that supposedly the main character did not have the proper skills to replace Ariana. Chuck, in turn, did not understand what he was talking about. After that, Isaac simply remained silent, and Chuck became very angry and considered it necessary for his stepbrother to return to kindergarten, where he would be taught to talk to people. Arriving home, they were met by Anfisa and Frank. She told him that she had not seen him for quite some time. The father noticed many wounds on his son's body and asked him where he got them from. Isaac answered for the guy, saying that he had already taught those people a lesson. Anfisa then called Chuck and his father into her room. There, Frank patched up his son, after which he had the feeling that the boy had returned to childhood. But the hero interrupted him, saying that he had mixed everything up, since he was beaten because he was trying to flirt with a pretty neighbor. This made the father feel uneasy. Next, Chuck asked Frank if he knew anything about the skills that Isaac told him about. As it turned out, the protagonist's father knew about them, but he didn't have time to say anything when Anfisa entered the room. She said he lacked the skills to receive the blessing. Also at this time, the servant brought the main character his clothes. What Chuck heard made him feel awkward, and he asked why him. Anfisa noticed that he was not surprised to hear about it, so she realized that young Master Larry had already told him about it. Chuck finally realized why Ariana had become this way towards him, because she had been deprived of such a valuable opportunity. Ariana has been sick since childhood due to the cold. Anfisa understands that she has enough strength to participate in the test, but she does not want her to risk her life again. This is all maternal excitement. But it wouldn't be possible to choose Isaac. He is very strong, so he doesn't need it. Even her father said that Chuck is better suited than Ariana. The main character did not understand who her father was, but Frank told him that he knew him since they saw each other at the old school. The father gave the boy a photograph in which he saw the school principal. Frank left Chuck when he was in high school. At that time, he trained hard even on the weekends, so he often ran into the director in the gym. The director often watched him. Sometimes they even had lunch together. There were rumors that the director retired early due to health problems, and the boy has not seen him since then. The main character would never have thought that Mrs. Anfisa would be his daughter. The lady told him not to worry. He can think about this proposal. If he doesn't want to take risks, then it's okay. Chuck was brought to the university and told that these people would not bother him anymore. Suddenly, Brother Larry called the hero. He told him that there was a little commotion at the academy, but Isaac's family had sorted everything out. Chuck was surprised that he had already found out about everything, to which Larry said, since he is the president of the organization, he must take care of its members. A lot happened to the brother during the day, so he told the hero to rest, and the next day he offered to finish solving the entrance test, to which Chuck agreed. At that same moment, someone could be heard from the phone cutting someone into pieces, so Chuck asked his friend where he was. Larry was in Hulaguan at that time and invited the boy to come to him. Chuck didn't ask any unnecessary questions, but just said that he would be there soon. The main character went to his brother and decided to take out all his anger on the monsters. After getting rid of all the monsters, Larry admitted to him that he sometimes scares him. The guys had come so far, but there was not a single leader of the demons there, and there was no one on the way to this place either. Then Larry noticed that it was too quiet. Suddenly, the guys noticed a crowd of students running towards them and shouting to run faster. One of the students shouted to escape because the famous leader of the demons was coming towards them. The guys were shocked, and Larry suggested that Chuck go take a look. But unexpectedly, one student called Brother Larry, saying that Wanda had not returned yet, as she was helping the students. Larry was completely scared because it was his older sister. Without slowing down, he ran towards the leader of the demons, while Chuck remained in place at this time. He suddenly wondered what this demon commander was famous for. A couple of minutes later, The voice of a girl was heard behind the hero's back, who said that he would be only too glad not to help him. Chuck thought this voice was very familiar, as it was similar to Ariana's voice. The girl told him that she didn't understand what he was talking about, which is why the guy was sure it was her. At this time, Wanda tried to at least fight the demon and break away from him, but she was not doing well. Fortunately, Larry managed to run to his sister, which Wanda did not expect. While the brother was protecting his older sister, the demon almost destroyed his internal organs. Larry knew he couldn't defeat this monster, but he was ready to at least stop him, and after that, find an opportunity to get as far away from him as possible. The brother used 2 of his legendary creatures, which the demon killed with 1 blow. At that moment, the guy even shed a tear because he lost his white tiger. In the distance, Chuck noticed the demonic general's sword. If he and Ariana worked together, they could defeat him. To raise spirits, the main character told his sister that she could take the monster's drops. At this time, Larry was running with Wanda, but she noticed that he was already behind him. The brother did not hesitate and pushed his sister aside, telling her to run away as quickly as possible. The demon dealt a crushing blow to Larry. Wanda was very scared for her brother. However, Chuck managed to pull his brother out of such a dangerous moment. The brother was shocked because he no longer knows how many times Chuck saved him, to which the hero told him not to take the drops for himself. It seemed to Larry that the boy had gone crazy, because his brother thought that they could kill this demonic general together. But Chuck told him that there were not 2 but 3. The third was Ariana. She used the advanced art of sunlight. The brother was surprised when he learned that Ariana was helping them. It would be an all-out attack. At this moment, Ariana said to herself that even if she was born with an ice body, she could still use her power of the solar strife art, after which she became completely tired. Chuck told his brother not to give the demon a chance to recover, and to attack him with all his might. Suddenly, the monster began to disappear, and the guys flew several meters away from each other because of its disappearance. At first, Larry thought it was trying to escape, but Chuck didn't think so. This monster moves at high speed, so the main character realized that his target was Ariana. As soon as he realized this, he immediately flew to save his stepsister. Ariana began to grumble about what had happened. Even if he had not come, she would have dodged it herself. After this, Chuck dealt a crushing blow to the demon, which he could not withstand. As a result, the Essence Energy skill crystal fell out of him. Chuck immediately offered to take it to Ariana, which she didn't expect. The hero told her that he would not help her for free and the drops would be given to her. However, the girl refused him because he saved her and she does not want to be obligated to him. Ariana was furious because she didn't think she could just become her big brother. Wanda captured this moment on camera and said that their generation was definitely full of monsters, to which Larry replied that he was already used to it. Returning home, Chuck absorbed an entity energy crystal, a mutated demonic general. By accumulating essence energy from Sword Key, one can easily kill the demonic general. He does not have a fixed use of essence energy. This is the hero's first time encountering this type of essence energy skill. It's no surprise that the engraved word of the demonic general can instantly kill the legendary Jade White Tiger, but Chuck feels that it needs to be used more wisely. The main character decided to use the key sword on the demon, but after the blow, the sword did not even cut his skin. The boy did not notice how the energy of the essence ended, and the monster in the game killed him. The demonic general's sword word skill is useless against the fist word. It seems that the word specially engraved on his head is really like rock, paper, scissors. The 3 demonic generals have unique abilities. If it's like rock, paper equals sign scissors, then the sword essence energy that Chuck countered must be paper. But the spawn rate of specific demonic generals is low, so the guy thought of going through other dungeons. On the streets, people were heatedly discussing Chuck and Ariana's battle together. These rumors were heard by the hero's neighbor on the first floor, Viola, who did not expect him to be so strong. At this time, Vanessa was watching a video of this fight, and standing next to her was another teacher, who noticed that she was not happy about how Chuck killed the carved word of the demonic general. The woman noted that he was really talented, but the guy had never attended a single self-study class in school. And these days, he practically plays games without letting go of his phone. Vanessa also added that she will not allow her student to indulge, degrade, and waste his talents. She is training LeBron. She wanted to use the power of LeBron's mysterious wordless Steely, from which Chuck would get rid of his gambling addiction and focus on training and training. While Vanessa was coming up with something there, our hero was sleeping soundly at home. But suddenly something made him wake up. Opening his eyes and walking further, he saw the whole world destroyed. Monsters were raging in the streets, and the military asked for help since they could not cope with them at all. Chuck was perplexed in fear, and at that moment a guy unknown to him appeared behind him. He turned in his direction when he suddenly woke up in his bed. It was a dream, but it seemed too realistic. There the guy felt blood and the smell of burning. It was also unclear who the mysterious person in his dream was. Chuck thought it was the effect of the Immortality Sutra. The previous dream was just an illusion. But this time, it seemed as real as in reality. The hero could only guess. Either the Suture of Immortality was out of control, or the guy's dream was trying to tell him something. At this time, while Chuck was thinking, a pet appeared from behind him. Our hero thought and thought, as a result of which he came to the conclusion that even if this is a sign of disaster, all he can do is become stronger before it comes. But now he needs to find a method to become the owner of the legendary rank. By this time, a dimensional creature had been discovered on the spatial defense line in the Eastern Sea region. Having passed through the defense line, the image was captured and confirmed to be a dimensional creature of the Eastern region, a Sea King snake. A few days later, all the students gathered at Shiyang University. Vanessa congratulated everyone on passing the entrance exam and then began teaching the official class. They won't be learning about combat in this class, but the teacher will take them all to Mount Lebron to do a cultivation meditation. There is a divine, mysterious power there, Fearless Stella. Vanessa believed that everyone would get a lot of benefit from it. Chuck was very exhausted, and Larry asked him what he had been doing these few days. Before that, he told him to control himself and began to laugh. These few days, the hero has been trying to learn the progressive method. Now he can't break through mortals. Even if he absorbs the attribute Essence Crystal, he can't increase it. Now the guy only has the minor perfection level Wisdom Sutra, which helped him break through the attribute to 11. And there is also a stele on the Fire God Tower. Perhaps this is some kind of mysterious essence energy art that helps increase the attributes. Relying on the flying ant alone is not enough for our hero. He needs to have some kind of essence energy art, such as a light body or flight. After standing in class a little longer, Chuck fell asleep and teacher Vanessa noticed this. She was uncomfortable with his behavior, but she was happy because she thought that his laziness would soon disappear. At this time, a fierce battle was taking place in the Chess Mountain. The heroes of this battle fought against the most dangerous monsters. A few hours later, they killed the last monster. Only one of them was brutally wounded. But this hero could not hold out until help and soon died. One of the members of the team of heroes said that they were the pride of humanity, and with sadness on his face, closed the eyes of his fallen comrade. He said that there was no time to be sad, since they could not waste their sacrifices in vain, and then ordered a team from the engineering department to be sent to restore the defense line. Now, the mutation of the Chess Mountain dimensions is becoming serious. They must find the source. The hero hoped that the situation in the eastern part of the sea would be resolved safely. Students during this time period went to Mount Lebron. Larry never thought they would get there so quickly, since last year only Special Forces students had such lessons. The brother became interested, and he threw in information that there really was no danger in this area. The teacher brought a whole group of first-year students to the lesson, but then he said not to worry. This place is known as a no-kill world from the Federation. Creatures here will not take the initiative to attack. People are also not allowed to harm anyone. In some ways, this is the safest area of the dimensions, but Larry warned not to break the rule of killing and added with ridicule, otherwise punishment will overtake you. Usually the Federation doesn't write this in the rules, so guys should be obedient. Larry's not sure if they have any leads on the Silent Stella, but I hear that thing is pretty evil. And then he whispered in Chuck's ear, although she won't beat him, she will make him unable to resist. She seems to have unlimited energy. Teacher Vanessa saw that Larry and the hero were distracted from their lesson and called them to come to the front row. The guys approached the woman, and she said to simply accept the baptism of this Stella. The task this time is to hold out for 30 minutes under the power of this stele, not a second more or less. The teacher started the timer, and Chuck fell into a state of rest. The main character felt warm, mysterious energy pouring into his body. With every second, the boy was getting hotter and hotter. After some time, not only the temperature, but also the body feels uncontrollable, becomes more restless. The feeling has disappeared. The Immortal Sutra is the same as in the small Buddha temple. Vanessa said to forget about the restless Stella. It really can help calm down, but with prolonged use, the guys will become too excited. She hoped they could change and become hardworking students, especially Chuck. Just by looking at him, you could see that he was sleeping, and Vanessa was shocked by him. Time will soon run out. If he continues in this state, the power of the stele may harm other students. When the end of the meditation came, the students were ready to die from having endured it. They simply could not wait to rub their fists on someone. The teacher saw for the first time how the restless stele had no effect on the student. She already thought that he was too lazy and already hopeless. But Chuck came up to her and said that he was full of energy and felt simply tireless. So he asked him to let him go for a walk or just run a marathon, for example. Vanessa didn't believe him, but she let him go, on the condition that he return within 3 hours for the general meeting. Just now, when the boy was meditating, his essence energy increased to 11. Just like in the case of the little Buddha, he broke through another limit. In addition, the hero's body fool is the third type of essence energy art. Chuck went further and thought that suddenly the restless stele was the hidden source of the essence art. The main character was walking without looking around. when he suddenly crashed into something soft. He stepped back a couple of steps and saw a huge multidimensional being in front of him. However, the guy was lucky since it was not going to attack him. This creature ate grass with a huge appetite. Chuck noticed this and thought that this herb might be some kind of rarity. The hero looked around and saw another plant further away, similar to what a multidimensional creature had eaten. The guy tried to tear this plant off with all his might. It was really hard. Maybe it really is a special herb. Only while he was trying to pull out the plant, a creature with horns saw him and became very angry. It came up to him, took him by the collar and lifted him up along with the roots of the plant. After this, Chuck was thrown to the side. He borrowed the force that could pull him in and was able to take it. But the harmless monster suddenly became touchy and began to take the plant from the main character. Apparently this monster could pester the guy until he gave up, so he gave it away just like that. This creature began to leave in disgust, and in the meantime Chuck said to himself that if he could not defeat it, this did not mean that he did not have other ways to deal with it. The main character walked further, and it began to seem to him that he had already walked there before. A thick fog began to appear next to it. It looked like no one had gone there for a long time. After walking a little more, the guy looked up and saw a dungeon mark there. He scanned it and was glad that there was now something new to play with. Suddenly, the hero was struck from behind by a powerful blow, from which he flew several tens of meters away. It was the same creature that Chuck had seen earlier. The guy said that this cunning bastard attacked him in a mean way, which almost broke his lower back. He knew he couldn't fight Chuck on LeBron Mountain, so he decided to push him into this place, deal with this shit, just because of one blade of grass. Suddenly, his body began to become covered with plant stems. But Chuck remembered the special art of essence energy, like in the Buddha temple, to remove the effect of the mysterious energy. Moreover, the hero remembered that this place was all in the fog, and of course he didn't know which way to go. And after a couple of seconds, this creature that looked like a ram appeared behind him. Chuck looked at him and asked what it was this time. The lamb hit the ground with its hooves, after which the fog began to dissipate, and the guy began to see the road. At first, Chuck did not understand what was happening, but then the ram began to push him towards the town. The guy began to look around the town and noticed that it was very quiet, and even on the territory of dimensions. Walking even further, he noticed a building at the end of the town that gave off the same aura as the small Buddha temple. It was one of the 3 pure temples in Taishan. Chuck didn't do anything wrong, but the ram just kicked the main character, and he flew away. The avenue is formless. It gives birth to heaven and earth. The avenue is merciless. It moves the sun and the moon. Chuck does not know its name, but its name is Tao. And since you are a disciple of the Taoist sect, you can choose one of 3 talismans. First Buddhism, now Taoism. The hero no longer understands what is happening. Also, again the guy is faced with a choice. This time jade, wood and gold. The wooden talisman is associated with nature, so most likely it represents the powers of Taishan, which is why the main character chose it. But suddenly forced hatching appeared again. Chuck opened his eyes, his body feeling exhausted. Standing up, a light ball appeared in front of him, which he saw for the first time in his life. From this ball, a companion animal emerged, but he only has one skill, which was called Tai. Chuck figured it would be best to deal with this after he returned if he was gone too long. The teacher might get suspicious. The teacher was looking for him all over the neighborhood. Because of this, she asked where he was, to which he replied that he was just taking a walk and accidentally came across somewhere too far away. The brother said that he had gone too far and made friends with the sheep, and Chuck at that time did not understand what he was talking about. Then he heard a sheep behind him making a sound and finally understood what Larry was talking about. Having examined it more closely, he saw an eye mark on its front arm. It was the same stupid sheep. The students' classes ended and Chuck returned home with the sheep following him. He washed that plant several times already and tried to feed it to the master ram so that he would return to LeBron. Baran said that he was free, but in his head he thought that this guy would not go with him all the way. The guy thought there must be a way in the game to get rid of this ram master. When he returned, he tried to log into LeBron on his phone. The main character thought that it would be as safe as in the real world, but he didn't expect that as soon as he entered, he would immediately be attacked by a monster that could kill him in a matter of seconds. The only difference between reality and the game is that this ram follows him into the dungeon. Despite the fact that his character is so-so, it is still not an ordinary high-level creature. Although Chuck has not yet figured out why he's following him, in any case, he will not be able to take him away, so he will have to look after him. Our hero went on the phone to fight in the Ebo Tower, with the help of Tai. Tai's cold can work against the Firebird of the Fire Elemental Tower. It's just that Tai's current life force can only be used once. But this technique of Tai is incredibly powerful, and the range of distribution is very wide. You just need to learn how to use it well. Although there are many Firebirds at the top, if you figure out how to gather them all in a heap, you can kill them all at once. Chuck started running and collecting birds in a pile. Everything was going well, and he called the flying ant to him. However, when the ant began to fly towards its owner, it was caught in a trap. Well, naturally, it's not as easy as the main character thought. He and the flying ant will be surrounded before I can gather them together. To avoid being surrounded by them, he needs to become more agile and faster. It seems it's time to find a suitable vitality skill to speed up movement. To solve this problem, he first decided to try opening a forum. After looking at many advertisements, he realized that it was still better to go to the library himself to look for the necessary information. At this time, the ram showed the guy a magazine with vegetables. First, he asked him if he wanted to eat, and then he remembered that he liked to enjoy life. After sitting in the library, the guy learned that Unix and Yingshan allow you to enter super acceleration in an instant, but it takes a lot of effort. After looking a little more, he realized that only the art of Dragon Gate flight was suitable for him. The art of flight goes back to the goddess Huang, although using it you cannot remain motionless for a long time. But the movements are very graceful and fast, and besides, it can be maintained for a long time. Longmeng Caves is in Luoyang, so Chuck plans to go there the next day. But as soon as the guy took one step, a huge monster flew out of the ground in front of him. It was a spatial creature. Chuck at first did not believe what he saw because he did not understand how it could appear in the city. The consequences of such a monster can be devastating because it is probably a creature of epic level. Suddenly, this creature began to use a life force technique. But at the same time, the military managed to fly to the monster, and using helicopters, began shooting at it. A man also appeared in the distance after such a long chase. He could see that he still wanted to escape somewhere. He used a thunderclap and pierced right through this monster. The spatial creature was destroyed, after which the man approached Chuck and asked if everything was okay with him. The man said that this is just a pet that went crazy and ran away from its owner due to too much passion for cultivation. To this, he added that the military would sort it out, and it was time for them to go, so that there would be no panic. The man asked the boy to keep his mouth shut. However, Chuck noticed that he was not at all like the pet with whom the contract was concluded. Arriving home, he felt the smell of blood outside the door. Suddenly, a shell fell out of the hero's pocket. Chuck didn't understand where he got it from, because he had never had such shells before. And at that moment, something came out of her and grabbed the guy by the neck. It was a girl. She was glad to be out of sight, but she felt sorry for her pet. Chuck was not happy at this time, as he felt that her suppression power was even stronger than that of the snake. Then the girl looked up with a sweet face, called Chuck Brother, and thanked him for his help. But appearances can be deceiving. She told him that his reward would be that she would eat him. Suddenly, someone shot at this girl. It was the Master Ram. Chuck was very happy about his sudden appearance. However, it was not free. The ram showed the hero magazines with vegetables, and Chuck, in turn, was ready to buy him everything. The girl called the guy an insignificant little man, and said that she was Queen Lana, after which she began to be indignant at how some ram could crush her. Chuck, due to her rudeness, asked the ram master if he could finish her off, to which the ram showed him vegetable magazines. Lana asked them to stop and promised them to give them the secret of her father, the god Kalen, if he spared the girl. Kalen is a god from the race. He is considered the primary deity in human mythology. He was the first god born in cosmic chaos. He is the beginning of all order, time and space. And he is also the beginning of the entire world. The girl ran away from the west to get a divine secret that was kept by demons if her brother spares her. She will give this secret to him. Divine secret is a secret vitality technique. She said that he needs to observe the space in the pearl, and he can experience the power of the god Kalen. Chuck looked at her and fell into Lana's trap. The main character, together with the Master Ram, ended up in an unknown place that looked like some kind of hole. Also, the divine sheep was bewitched. The ram was in shock and clearly did not like it. From this hole, an unknown person called Chuck a fellow countryman and called him to him. The guy began to be pulled down. At this time, his Sutra of Immortality was again circulating on its own. He thought that he had become a believer in another ancient god. Lana called the hero an idiot, because only those in whom the blood of chaos flows can comprehend it, so Chuck will be locked in this space forever. She began to close the hole into which Chuck was sucked, but suddenly something went wrong. Queen Lana was perplexed that the hero was not affected by chaos, and moreover, he had a divine technique. Don't forget about Master Ram. He was very angry. The lamb gathered all his anger into one powerful blow to the queen. This Naga sphere lost the divine chaos technique and turned into empty marble. Unexpectedly, the Ram Master was sucked in by this ball. Looks like there's still room inside. It's a pretty good bag, Chuck figured, and it looks like this bag can hold living things. A moment later, a ram came out of the ball and hit the main character on the head. Now the He would sell it for a lot of money, and give the proceeds to promote Sam's game. After a dozen attempts, the main character finally figured it out. All this time, he was looking for the weak point of the beast, and he succeeded. The bronze beast needs energy in its body to move, attack, and defend itself. When the bronze beast moves, energy is concentrated in one of the 4 parts of its body, while a lack of energy is created in the remaining parts. This is the weak point. However, the position of the weak points constantly changed and moved depending on the movement of the beast. If a mortal-level person wants to defeat such a beast, he needs to study the bronze beast completely and remember where and when it has weak points. It's time to become a researcher again. After a long time, Chuck developed a scheme and sent it by message to his friend Larry. The brother decided to try it out, and he was shocked when he managed to destroy the beast. He was wondering how the boy found so many details. Chuck told him not to worry about it. Although the mortal class spends more effort than them, the mortals would still be able to calmly defeat the bronze beast. Larry could confidently say that his friend would get rich from this article. Suddenly, some student overheard their conversation and said, "It's unlikely that a strategy is needed for this mission. Their quest states that they must kill 10 bronze beasts, but does not say which ones." Based on this, the bronze rabbit can be considered a bronze beast. The guy's mood clearly dropped after hearing this, as they spent a lot of effort on this. The guys checked the assignment on their phone. It turned out that their assignment was different from the assignment of other students. This meant that now no one would buy the strategy that Chuck wrote. Suddenly, from behind the guys, someone said that this is not at all true. They say that a special class has a task related to a bronze beast, for which they wrote a strategy. This person behind the guys was an academy graduate, Sam. Sam didn't even notice that Chuck had written out every phase of the bronze beast. This strategy can be used in the game. However, this did not mean that a special class would buy this manual to complete the mission. The special class is very proud, and they believe that if they accept help from others, then they are not at all as cool as they thought. For them, status is above all. The guys started to leave, but suddenly Sam asked them to wait because he hadn't told them everything yet. Although they are unlikely to buy a strategy for the mission, but with this strategy, many can beat his record in the Forbidden City. Some of them who like to show off will probably buy Chuck's article to get around him. The main character thought, and it dawned on him that racing definitely has the right to happen. In the Lotus Cave, both Fail and Viola tried to take part in the race. Suddenly, Fail grabbed Chuck and was glad that he had finally found him. Fail began to literally drag the boy, and at that time his pants began to come down. While Chuck was still not completely gone, Sam reminded him not to forget to deposit money into his account for information. During training, Fail told the hero that thanks to him, he finally understood something. Chuck felt very awkward since he hadn't said anything at all yet. The student wanted to show him what he had learned. Not to mention, he began to attack the main character. The distance between the sword and the air is not interrupted, as if it were fixed. Chuck used his abilities and saw that his sword was indeed looking at him as if with eyes. Even without using your eyes, if you're able to perceive the slightest movements in the air, you will be able to use your sword more skillfully. However, Fail believed that he was still far from the power that the teacher possessed, so he wanted to know if the boy was happy with him. It seemed to Chuck that despite the similarities, it was clear that the mind's eye was not the same as hearing. This boy had truly achieved perfection with his own understanding. Based on this, the hero told his student that in fact he really has nothing to teach him. Since his mind belongs only to him, with high talent and good understanding, Chuck decided to return the money to him. But Fail said that he is really progressing from his instructions, and he knows how quickly Chuck is progressing, and he must strictly monitor the training time. So it is selfish of him to delay the teacher's training, the student thought. Fail also added that he would do his best where he was needed. Chuck did not want to argue with him, so he simply told him to continue in the same spirit. And then, the student unexpectedly said that he wanted to know the teacher better, and if he didn't mind, then Fail would move in with him. The boy immediately refused him because how would he be able to play the game after that if they lived together? Plus, his life could be in danger. After that, Fail managed to cry with understanding for the teacher. Finally, the hero returned home, and on the way he bought food for the Ram Master. And at that time, the lamb was watching Chuck's children's album. And then the boy thought that someone called his father by name. The hero changed clothes and went to play in a copy of the Anthill's lair. In the battle with the golden ant, even the silver-winged flying ant could not reach him. Because of this, the hero decided to use the general to buy him time. As Chuck expected from the legendary creature, the difference in levels is too great. So he decided to use the banana fairy as well. However, the golden ant somehow dodges such attacks. But suddenly Chuck noticed that he was guarding that white cocoon. The hero had a little time to eat the nectar, and he took advantage of it, but the ant killed him. After this fight, the guy noticed that he preferred protecting that white cocoon rather than protecting the nectar, and it seems that he finally found a way to get the nectar. At this time, Larry called him with an offer to complete a task in the Forbidden City tomorrow. He didn't mind, but since they have a strategy, and the deadline for completing this task is long, the hero did not understand why they should rush. His brother reminded him that they promised his sister to get to know her club and complete missions together, and recently they agreed to organize the club's activities in the Forbidden City so that everyone could complete the missions. Immediately, Wanda unexpectedly came to her brother and called him Larry, and he once asked her not to call him that. She came to say that she had received another application from a group of people to participate in this event. This event will be busier than expected. Suddenly, an argument broke out between the student and the chairman. Hunter told the chairman that Chuck was going to use their tricks to win the hearts of the other students, to which the chairman replied that they were all a bunch of troublemakers and he was just there to supervise. Wanda suddenly appeared behind Chuck and told him that everyone was after him now since he made a name for himself with that fight. The hero was also met by Viola and Fail. He, naturally, did not expect to meet them there. Larry came out immediately and introduced them as new members of their club. Chuck asked him how he got them to join him. The brother said that everything was not so difficult. He told his student that his coach was also in the club and he also joined to be closer to him. And Viola had a feeling that something good would happen, so she entered. The students began to fight with the bronze beasts. Chuck's instructions greatly reduced the time to kill the bronze beast. But the boy himself did not want to participate in this and simply found a quiet corner to play the game. Suddenly, the hero's mysterious phone began to vibrate. After this, an earthquake immediately began and the students began to panic. People thought that they had already said goodbye to life, but in fact a gate opened on the other side. This place was not marked on the map of the Forbidden City. Chuck was curious about what was there, so he suggested everyone go there. Walking further, they saw some kind of bronze wall, and Viola suggested that there might be a cave there. The main character used the Chronicle of the Demon Gods, a step into the sky, to check. After checking, he concluded that the entire building is completely devoid of entrance. There is not even a small hole. One of the students tried to strike this building. However, the chairman said that even brute force would not help. Chuck at this time thought that there was no door or small holes, but there was a force that protected this thing. Unexpectedly, one of the students said that this was a deception of the gods. It was Robert, and he believed that this might be so. During one dynasty, people believed in ghosts and gods, and also that the gods of the sky were the answer to life and death, and therefore the kings were careful about funeral rites. However, it is said that at the end of the Zhou dynasty, the prince himself was so afraid of death that he placed his own blood and bones in a closed city of death. He tried to deceive the heavens and fake his death to avoid his fate. It is a pity that fate cannot be changed, and in the end, death was inevitable. According to historical records, this is a city of the dead that is trying to deceive the gods. It is cast in bronze and does not have doors or anything else. Robert also knew how to get there if it really was a dead city of the Zhou dynasty. Perhaps he could try to dig under the southern wall of the city. But Robert was worried that it might be dangerous there, but Fail reassured him, saying that the teacher would not mind looking there. The students managed to enter the city of the dead, in which there was simply a dead tree. Even though it's just wood, this is the first time Chuck's phone has responded to something other than dungeon prints. The guys tried to explore this area, but did not find anything good except a dead tree. Suddenly, one of the students simply touched the tree and it began to glow. This student was checked by the girl for the presence of damage and curses, but there were none. In fact, he did not feel anything. He was simply frightened by the sharp light from the tree. Larry and Chuck had no idea why the tree suddenly lit up. But Viola became very curious, and since she did not see any danger, she also touched this tree, and this time the color turned red. The brother was afraid for her and asked if she felt anything. It seemed to the main character that there was some kind of trick in this tree, and for now it was better not to touch the tree. Since Viola felt nothing but the change in the color of the tree, Larry also wanted to touch it. This time the tree turned golden, and some students also decided to try touching it to check their color. Chuck returned home. The road from the Forbidden City to home was very long, and the tree was still downloading on his phone. Nothing happened when the guy pressed the phone. It seemed like he could be waiting for the download to finish, which meant he could take a little nap. The qualifying tournament on the Holy Land was just around the corner. Anfisa didn't feel comfortable with Chuck being alone, so she thought of asking Ariana to accompany him on the trip. Isaac was confident that little Ariana could do it. Anfisa's decision was final. She knew that he loved his sister very much, so she told him that unlike him, she was born with a cold body, the reason for which is still unknown to them. The cold that accompanies her body is unstable, meaning that she has to endure more pain than usual, which is why she does not support the practice of archery. Even if Ariana wins this qualification, if something happens during the competition, even if there is a small chance of that happening, she doesn't want to lose someone important again. The tree on Chuck's phone has finally finished loading. It's called the Dead Man's Tree. It is unclear why this tree was a separate mobile copy. Suddenly, Ariana burst into the hero's door. It looks like she just got out of the shower and came straight to the guy, asking him to immediately finish the duel they promised. Chuck said he didn't remember them ever promising the duel she was talking about, and then he gave her a towel and told her to come back upstairs as soon as she was dry. She asked him why he didn't want to when he now had a legend class and a powerful companion. The guy told her to shut up because he knew that it was because of the qualifications of the holy place. He didn't want her. If she was so important to her, then the hero would even now go to persuade Anfisa to give her to Ariana. Ariana knew that the beating would not prove anything, but the girl could not come to terms with it and began to cry because she had put her life on the line to prove that she deserved this qualification. And Chuck got her so easily and can easily refuse her. The girl thinks this is unfair. She wants to practice archery and not endure terrible pain from the cold. At that moment, Larry called the guy. He said that a strange thing happened. All the people who entered the dead city with them yesterday suddenly died this morning, and Viola seems to be still there inside. Chuck and Ariana quickly got ready and then went to meet Larry. The main character first asked if it was in the secondary kingdom. The brother replied that it was at school. They say that they almost suddenly, without warning, lost their breathing and heartbeat. He also read a list with the names of all 5 who died, and they were all the ones who touched the tree. Larry also touched this tree. If it is really because of the tree's power, then he is also in great danger now. Brother had already told the academy about the tree, but according to the investigative team, no traces of the tree were found in this forbidden city. The tree has disappeared. This matter